So, hi, everybody. Here's another edition of Beyond Addiction podcast brought to you by Gulf Breeze Recovery. And today we're with Nole Agilto, recreation therapist with Gulf Breeze Recovery. So, I think I did a little better on your pronunciation, Nole.
Yes.
So, for me and for the people watching this, can you explain exactly what is a recreational
Well,
therapist?
a recreational therapist is somebody who uses leisure and recreation as a modality to reach a person's goal of whatever setting that they're in. I've worked in multiple settings, working with every age group that there is. So it's inpatient, a person inpatient, and we do work out in the community as well. So it's just a person who uses recreation as the modality. So you can kind of disguise things in a way.
Terrific. So, how does it apply in a rehab situation, which is what we have at Gulf Breeze
Yes.
Recovery?
Well, a lot of what happens at GBR for what I do is I get people out in the community to practice leisure skills. Oftentimes, what happens is people are not connected; they're isolating, and they have to sort of what's the word I'm thinking of, just kind of remind themselves that we're social creatures, and what happens is people sort of drop out and are isolating and hiding with their substance use. And I use leisure and recreation to teach people, it's possible to have fun sober. And I try to get people to reintroduce themselves to themselves. People forget that they used to have all these hobbies and interests and those sorts of things, and they've been connected to people, and it can be challenging when people are suffering from anxiety, depression, and to, to name a few things, and PTSD through a lot of our veterans that we work with.
That's amazing because I understand that when you're in a modality of addiction, so much of what you do is secret and hiding,
Yes,
keeping it from everyone else, closing yourself
yes,
down. So, this has to be a rebirth.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's not easy for people to they've been doing, a lot of some of our patients have been in this funk, or whatever you want to call it, for 10, 20 years, and it has progressively gotten worse over time. So I always have to be mindful of that when I come in, and I've gotten better about my energy, as far because I'm pretty energetic, and I've got to meet people where they are, and I can scare people, and I can see it in their faces. When the things you take for granted, like, hey, we're going to go walk on the beach, or hey, we're going to go to the park and go on a nature walk, or whatever it is, and that look of fear, for a lot of people who have been isolating and staying inside, especially with the COVID stuff that's been going on. So many people were working from home and not wanting to get out, unless maybe they're going to the liquor store. And even with that, our patients are saying, I don't leave the house, I just have it delivered to my house. So, yes, it's people think, oh, you're just having fun at work, and they don't see a lot of the what it takes to get people to buy in, or just go along, because I tell people, look, you don't have to do anything, just come out for a fresh air break. And that sometimes is challenging for some folks, not everybody.
No, I understand because having spoken and interviewed some of our guests at Gulf Breeze Recovery, I can remember one gentleman talking about just sitting at the edge of the
Yes.
dock and for the first
Yep.
time enjoying the sun on his body. I mean, was so minimal, but it was his first
Yes.
time.
I mean, I have so many stories.
I have so many stories.
I have a lady who, she was taking care of three kids, going through a divorce, and she told me afterwards, she had told me, and her first outing was going canoeing, okay, going on a kayak in a canoe. And she was super self-conscious, right? You got to get in a bathing suit and all that. But she didn't. She said she hadn't left the house in a year, and here I am, right? Come on, you're gonna have fun, and then it scared the hell out of her. But she challenged herself, and when she came in and shared her story, she brought that up, and it's just good, when people when the light bulb when I see the light bulb go off of, and that, hey, you can have fun, and so many people will tell me, and I see it, they're laughing, and they say it in their graduation speeches, how, just the laughter, some people haven't been able to laugh in a long time, and you take that for granted, and I people who know me, they know, I use humor a lot, because I can really see if a person's engaged, or they're thinking clearly. I have a huge mental health background, starting from the mid 80s, and it's up here when you can distract somebody from severe mental illness. If they can understand a joke, they can participate in a lot of stuff, and it's,
Right.
yeah,
They could connect.
yes,
And so much of substance abuse is inside your head. You're just
yes,
listening to everything inside your head. And
yes,
I'm a meditator and I've done walking meditations. And I have to think that's a lot of what this is, just
yes.
using others. Go ahead, Jen. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
go ahead.
Using other senses.
Sure. So you're familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh and all his walking meditation. I mean, he's the best, and how humble he is, and how, I always tell people, we are an insight-based program. So it's all about you learning yourself, and getting insights about what you've done, and just how you can be present. So the meditation, and all of that is really important.
Terrific. And tell me another one of the stories when you're talking with someone about a success you had with your therapy. Is
Mhm.
there something that comes to mind?
Um, I'm trying to think, you know, um, just getting people to recognize their behavior. They catch themselves in social settings. We cram each other. We cram people in a van, right? I try to take two vans. We try to separate people so that they're comfortable. You know, there's a lot of just people that, they get irritable. Especially when I'm asking them, hey, let's go do something different. So they're already uncomfortable, right? They're super uncomfortable with themselves. So any little thing will set them off. So I always remind people that sometimes being in GBR is like an episode of The Real World, because we do have cameras and everything, but there's no volume. But it's you get all these people from different backgrounds, who not would normally not even interact, and it gets intense. Let's see, I'm trying to think. So I coordinate the graduate speakers, and it that's pretty much, I feel like, one of the biggest things I do, and it's rewarding for me because I get to see who's doing well, and it goes both ways too. But when I have people come in, and share, I had a guy, just to remind me how important it is to be patient with the family members. I have a guy who didn't have a relationship with his adult children. They were, you know, like a lot of our patients. Sometimes there's divorce involved, and kids, adult kids, are having to deal with what it was like as a teenager. The decades of the bullshit, or I don't know if I can curse on here, but they're frustrated, but there comes a time where they realize they need their parents, and I tell them, be patient with your family, and I had a guy who would tell me, I I got a phone call, because he would reach out to his family members just through text, let them know, hey, he didn't say anything about how he was doing, he would just say, hey, how's it going, checking in on the grandkids he hadn't met, you know, and then one year he got after this, and this might have been over like 3 year period, 2 or 3 year period where it was just texting, and then he got an invitation. He got an invitation. Hey, come out for Thanksgiving. So the family members from out of state, and he said it was awkward. He said it was awkward because the son wouldn't allow him to stay at the house, so he had to go Airbnb, and it kind of gradually worked towards where he could stay in the house. And now that there's interaction with the kids, the grandkids come over, and he was just so happy how he worked on himself, to the point where the trust was just built over time. So, you can't expect family members to jump on board and trust you when all they know over decades is, when's this person gonna relapse next, because they're just fearful, they're scared, and once people realize that, they can they can take the lumps, because it's not easy, the discharge part. They're getting they're getting lots of judgment, so it's great to see, learn patience over time, that it'll come around. Be patient with your family members.
Wonderful. That's really wonderful. Now you mentioned that you work with the graduates.
Yes.
Tell me more about that. How do you interact and what goes on with graduates in Nole?
um, so I reach out, I reach out to people, and sometimes I challenge people when they leave. Not challenge, I should take that back. I say, hey, I'll see you in 6 months. you know some people are scared, some people are eager for it. Some people use that 6 months as a challenge personally, to challenge themselves, and because they have told me that. um, I reached out to people yesterday that were here in 2019, and it's bold, you know what I mean? Hey, it's Noli from GBR, you know, and looking for graduate speakers for December. That's my text. Hope you're doing well, because you never know, right? Most people
Most
are
people are
happy to hear from me if they remember me. Um, and I start this dialogue, and they tell me, yes, most of them say, yeah, they'll do it either through Zoom or in person, depending on where they live. And I was going back and forth with a lady yesterday, and it was good, and she's telling me, well, my story's pretty rough, and I want to hear, I want them to share the hard stuff, not to candy coat anything, because it's not easy, and they need to hear everybody's everybody's journey, because it's a
Right.
journey.
So folks who are in the center now
Yes,
have a graduate speak to them about their journey, about
yes,
what they went through, how it
yes,
worked for them, and what they're going through now.
yes. 2 times a week. I have them coming in on Thursdays and on Fridays, and it's probably one of the most impactful things they say, you know, because they want to hear from people who've sat in the seats that they've sat in, and it's just a great way to be in contact with a lot of people, you know.
Right. So what sustains you? What keeps you energized? What do you have a regime that makes you a safe place to land?
My hobbies and interests are projects. I have projects at the house. I like to play beach volleyball. As old as I am, I'm still out there. I'm playing today at 5 o'clock. I'm hoping it's not going to rain. Looks ugly outside, but we're going to do it. Um, cooking and traveling. I just came back from Hawaii and California. was gone pretty much most of October. Um, those sorts of things, keep me exercise, cycling.
Those those sound simple, but those are the things that the people that you work with have
Yes,
forgotten to do.
yes,
They're get up every day concentrating on how they're going to take care of this addiction,
yes,
and they lost all the opportunity. Then they say they're not going to have fun if
yes.
they can't drink or they can't use. Oh my gosh, they've lost the idea of how much fun it is to walk a dog.
Yeah, so there are times, I mean, every week people say to me, like, so like, was it Tuesday last week? We went to the beach, you know, and you wouldn't believe how many, some of the locals that are just triggered by being on the beach because it's a place, right? Lots of alcohol, lots of memories, good and bad, and going to a bowling alley, same thing, you know. I hear it every time. It's very common to see people drinking on these bowling leagues, and even in the daytime, there's leagues going on, and it surprised me. People were coming in with their own personal coolers, and it was blown away. But it's a good place. It's a good time to talk about that kind of stuff, and or with their counselors, because the alcohol thing. It's out. It's in your face, 24/7. Anywhere you go, you're going to be around it. They are in the bubble at GBR, but you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable around that. And so what sustains me, being in contact with guests and seeing transformations, that's what sustains me. I try to um, do the self-care thing. That's what I'm selling. Actually, I don't even have to sell it. Self-care is important. It's what my during graduate group that we do, Pamela and I, on Mondays, we every new year we talk about, hey, what's your, and we try not to do resolutions. We just like to try to put it into a word or two of what you want to do, like a mantra. And I always say self-care, because self-care takes care of everything. If you're doing all the, at least for me, if you're doing all the fun stuff, eh, balance, right, balance the work and the play and all that stuff, everything will fall into place.
Yes, and you mentioned the counselors and the therapists. How do you interact with them?
Um, so they will sometimes share certain things, or I will tell them, hey, this is what they're doing in groups, because when I do groups, I document, how they're doing, effort, are they engaged, are they participating, do they avoid, are they refusing groups, we deal with a lot of that. There's a lot of discomfort going on. I see it every day, when we're asking people to make transformations, and when you don't want to do that, it shows its ugly head in many different forms. It could just, I'm not doing it. I get that. We get that every day. I'm not doing that. And, there's consequences just like in everything. And, that's just kind of what it is. We're, recovery is a contact sport. You got to participate. You have to do something different. And when we ask people to do different things, it's very uncomfortable. But the discomfort is what's needed to make change. We see
Right,
it all the time.
right. So, what is the best thing for you working at GBR? What's
Um,
the best thing?
Probably the outings. And that's the difference with like a lot of our counselors. That scares the hell out of them. They couldn't imagine taking people out in the community where that's where I feel most comfortable. um, Getting people out of the building, that's when they're not dealing with stuff, and that's when they feel, when you don't have to think about your problems and you're just there to have fun. That's when you can have insights because you're open to it. And people have told me many things, almost to an overshare. I tell people, you tell your counselors this, right? And I'm honored that they're comfortable around me to share, their secrets or whatever it is, because it's uncomfortable.
Very good. When I talk with Barnett, who's the CEO at GBR,
Hmm.
he talks about the health of the helper,
Yes,
and that it's very important to him that
yes,
his staff also walks that walk and understands uh,
yes.
what it's what the program's really about. And don't you agree? I do too.
Absolutely. We're my schedule's pretty flexible. I'm there. I'm in the building. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. A couple days, really long hours, and then the fourth day, it's doing this Zoom meeting graduate groups and the meeting and reaching out to guests. So because that it takes it takes a lot of time and effort to reach people and to coordinate it. There's everybody's got lives, and there are times, and I do what you do. Hey, see you in a couple hours, right? Though there's reminder texts, and life happens, and sometimes people bail out in the last minute because of dog has to go to the vet, or I have to leave a sick child, and just the list goes on and on. So I always thank the graduates, and they tell me it's so helpful for them to remember where they came from. They love helping the graduates. I have one lady who's always asks me how many people are in there because I'm bringing candy in. Is that okay? And she'll bring candy bars in because it's very common for people to crave sugar, and it's every time they're conditioned. They think because sometimes we do go out for ice cream, yogurt, coffee, that kind of stuff. Only once a week though. But last night we did mall walking last night because it was so cold, and that's torture, right? For some people walking around the mall because all you smell in there is baked goods and all the food court and everything, and then there's ice cream and they're just thinking, hey, we're in the van, we're out with Noli, it's time for some sweets and treats, and no, we don't can't do it all the time, but
God,
they try, they ask, and we have plenty of stuff. We have plenty of stuff at GBR. Anybody will tell you there's you have to mindfully eat, and there's never a shortage. We have excellent chefs that provide all kinds of great stuff, and even on graduation days on Thursdays, you, you know we have lots of guests who Thursdays is our graduation day, and sometimes that can be a scary thing for people. They don't want to get up there and share. And I say, it's not about you giving a long speech. It's really about giving an opportunity for people to say bye to you. And sometimes I can sell that, right? Or sometimes I'll say, well, we're going to acknowledge you in my group when there's no staff in there, and I give that's like my last resort, because I do want them to have recognition, um, but it's frightful for many people to go up there and speak from the heart, and but it's so good. But when they do graduation, we always have like our chefs will provide something, anything they want, like cakes, shakes. We've had many different things, all kinds of crazy desserts, and that's the day, And I kind of jokingly throw that out there. Well, how are we going to get cake and ice cream if you don't get up there and share your story, you know? So it's a thing for sure where people will avoid the graduation because it's terrifying. So I always thank them for when they do get up there because it's not terrible, you know, it's not.
yeah, and sometimes when you get started, you realize this really isn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah, yeah. We have one guy. He was funny. He worked with us. I won't share his name, but he came back to work at GBR. But he had told me, so when we do graduation, sometimes they'll pull people out of detox to come into a graduation. So when you're in detox, you're at the lowest of the low. Well, the graduation scared the hell out of him to the point where he said, I'm not going up there to speak. He ended up staying at GBR for 90 days because he wanted to avoid the graduation. And he ended up, he did it, and it was good. But I always share that, that story because it's hilarious, and I do need to reach out to him because he's a
You know,
good
you
dude.
talked about how abundant is the food, because I was always careful about walking by the cafeteria because
Yes,
anything you want is in there. But
yes,
there's also an abundant library
yes.
of uh, of reading. Are there some books that you enjoyed particularly, or you could recommend to someone listening that is a book that you really liked?
Um, the Four Agreements is one of the ones I really liked. I'm still reading anything from Thich Nhat Hanh. Love his stuff. Those are the two that stand out. It's kind of nice to read Joe Bailey's books as well because we know him personally. You know, I always tease Joe about putting me in a chapter of one of his books because he often shares how he does these rec therapy things. Right? He told me, "Oh yeah, I'm taking a group of doctors out to Alaska," and I said, "Well, you're doing rec therapy, Joe, so you really need a rec therapist with you." You know, so those are
Have you
just a
have you done qigong with him?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and I do it myself. I do it. I mostly follow along this lady named Marissa. She's got a because I'm not an expert in that. I love doing it. I do it on my own a lot on vacation, and just I try to do it once a week at least, once or twice. But that's part of the self care thing, right? So yes, I've done it with Joe Bailey, and I try to get people. I like Marissa, who's on Yoki Qigong. She she explains everything, because there's so much going on in the body, and and it's fun to watch people who, I've got people, I've had some guys tell me, yes, I'm going to do this when I leave, and I'm going to do it in my front yard and be proud that I'm doing it. And he's kind of like this country guy living out in the sticks in Louisiana, but he's going to do it. And I've had plenty of people say, because we do have yoga, but not everybody can get on the ground, and the qigong is so um, accommodating to everybody because you can do it sitting down, and a lot of the stuff is just simple, repetitive movements that really can help you, especially with sleep and all that stuff. Um, so yes, qigong is something, and it's really good when I hear graduates say they're still doing it. You know,
Yes, that they keep that practice going. So,
yes.
what would you say to someone who's trying to find a recovery center and they're looking around? What would you tell them about GBR as the place?
I would tell them, if you're trying to get sober and you're tired of being sick and tired, come to us. Because we'll I always tell people I don't like telling people what to do. We're an insight-based program. You have to figure it out for yourself. Most people are stubborn and hard-headed like myself. I don't like to be told what to do, and I tell people, when you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you'll be open to making changes. And if you're ready to make some changes, this is the place. I've seen it hundreds of times. Where people just, and it's nice to see the people make that transformation and get that connection of, oh, this is why I'm doing this. I need to deal with some stuff, right? People have stuff, and people don't want to share their stuff, but they need to with our counselors, and it's really good to see.
Right. Now, I asked all the questions here. Is there something I didn't talk about or I didn't ask you that you
Mm,
kind of would like to make sure gets said?
just talking about therapeutic recreation is huge. Not people don't. I always like to think we're the icing on the cake. Like when I worked, I took a break from being in mental health for 14 years, working in physical rehab, and a lot of times people don't have a rec therapist, and what I was doing was just tying everything in together. Getting back out in the community, getting comfortable doing gardening, how to get your strength back. So, we're out there, we're not recognized as much. A lot of people don't stay in this profession. They move on to other things. But just putting a spotlight on therapeutic recreation. There's a ton of us out there doing stuff. working in multiple settings all over the country, and it's nice, when you get a lot of feedback from people, family members, and they say the simplest things. When I used to work in a hospital, I've worked in many major medical centers, and there are times where I could float out and be all over the hospital. And I've had people, nurses, telling me, "Hey, come over here and see this person, or come see this person." And you know, when you can get somebody engaged in what card game, blackjack, or whatever, and brighten up somebody's day, or come in with following around the support animals, when they're in the hospital. That's one thing I'm trying to get Barnett to sign off on. We can't have dogs in the facility, but maybe we can do something outside, you know.
Yeah, I learned a lot because I think I originally thought a recreational therapist was more like a physical trainer.
Yeah, and that's part of it because I'm comfortable doing that. I can definitely get people doing stretching, moving. I mean, that's just what they do. People come in and exercise and they do a lot of walking and weightlifting and those kinds of things. That's definitely one part of it. I'm comfortable setting up strength programs for people, and encouraging them. Hey, remember when you used to work out and had that gym membership? You might want to go or cancel it and do other stuff with that money because that's what the gyms want. They want you to sign up and forget about it. As Rich would say, I went by the gym today and I waved. Right, Rich? Rich, my counselor, you know?
No, I agree. But what you educated me and the listener on is this re-engagement, this re-entering into
Yes,
a real world, and that
yes,
everybody, like you can't just get in a car and start driving, you need to practice. So if
yes,
you're going to get out there and do well and have all of
yes,
this come to the place you need to practice.
yes. You really do. And people don't want to be told what to do. And I tell them, I can't tell you what's fun for you. And it changes over the years. We can't do a lot of the stuff we did when we were in our 20s. And most of our clients are 40 and up. We do have some 20s and 30s in there, but most of our guys are retired. So that's another thing people are dealing with all their free time, you know, because if you're not, the definition of leisure is your time away from work and school. And if you're retired and you're not going to school, all your time is free time. So,
Very good. Well, Noli, thanks a lot. I learned a lot. I hope you did enjoy sharing with us.
of
And
course,
if there's anything else you want to add, this is the moment to do it. Otherwise, we'll sign off.
yeah, just keep on keeping on.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.